You may never believe poverty could push a man into choices that made his heart pound with both fear and hope. My name is Teniola. I was nothing more than a poor maintenance worker at Chevron's Lagos headquarters, struggling to survive each day. My uniform was always faded, and my salary barely enough to feed myself and my younger brother, Sei. Poverty had a way of making every morning feel heavier than the last as an orphan. But everything changed the morning Elizabeth called me into her office. Elizabeth wasn't just any boss. She was the billionaire CEO sent from Chevron's U.S. headquarters, a foreign woman who carried power like perfume. People bowed with their eyes whenever she passed through the lobby. She was untouchable until that day, when her voice on the intercom said, "Teniola, report to my office." I thought it was a mistake. I had never even spoken to her directly. My heart hammered as I climbed the marble stairs, each step echoing my fear. Her office was like another world, glass walls, air conditioning so cold it felt like winter, and the view of the Atlantic spread wide behind her. She sat there, tall, elegant, her blonde hair tied back, her blue eyes fixed on me. "Sit," she said. I sat, my palms sweating. Then she slid a dark blue folder across the desk. When I opened it, I nearly dropped it. It was a Canadian permanent resident visa application. My name was already typed on it. "Do you know what this means?" she asked. I swallowed. "Yes, Ma. It means a new life." Her lips curved into the faintest smile. "I can give you that life, Teniola. A life where you will lack nothing. A life where you never worry about rent again." I raised my eyes to her, trembling. Why me?" She leaned forward, her eyes narrowing like a predator, about to strike. "Because I need you to do something for me. Something only you can give me." My chest rose and fell fast. "What is it, Ma?" Her voice dropped low, every syllable heavy. "I want you to impregnate me." I froze. My ears rang. "Ma, I don't understand." "You heard me," she said, her shadow stretching across the polished floor. "I don't want a husband. I don't want the politics of love. I just want a child. Strong, discreet, without scandal. You give me that, and I will give you everything." The air grew tighter in the room. My throat was dry. A billionaire was offering me the very thing I had prayed for years: escape, opportunity, a future. But the price she demanded made my knees weak. Elizabeth stepped closer, so close I could see the sharp glint of expectation in her eyes. "Think carefully, Teniola. This is not a joke. This offer doesn't come twice." When I stumbled back home that night, my brother Sei looked at me curiously. "Why are you shaking? Did they sack you?" I forced a smile, but inside, my chest was a battlefield of fear and temptation. How could I even explain it? That the most powerful woman in the company had just asked me for something no one would believe. I stared at the cracked ceiling above my bed, her words echoing in my head. "Impregnate me, and I will give you everything." And just like that, I knew my life was standing on a cliff, waiting for one step to change it forever. I couldn't sleep that night. Elizabeth's words chased me like shadows in my dreams. "Impregnate me, and I will give you everything." How does a poor man even process such a thing? I was the one who usually begged for survival. Yet here was a billionaire boss begging me for what only I could give her. By dawn, Sei was already coughing beside me. He was only 16, but thin as paper from hunger. The rent collector had banged on our door the day before, threatening to throw us out. Every problem in my life pointed to Elizabeth's offer like it was the only road out. But how could I sell my body like that? At work, I avoided her eyes. I swept corridors, fixed a leaking pipe, carried boxes, but her presence pressed on me like a weight. Then, just before closing hours, her secretary appeared. "Mr. Teniola, Madam wants to see you." My stomach dropped. I entered her office, and there she was, sipping red wine, her eyes locked on me. "You didn't give me an answer yesterday," she said. I stammered. "Ma, this thing you are asking, it's not simple. It is too big." Elizabeth rose, heels clicking on the marble. She came close enough that I felt her perfume again, rich and heavy. Big? Teniola. What's bigger than freedom? What's bigger than giving your brother a future? She tapped the folder on her desk. Your visa. Ready. Signed. All it takes is one choice. Her confidence scared me more than her request. I shook my head. But why me? You can pay anyone. Her lips pressed into a thin smile. Because you're not anyone. You're humble. Clean. I've watched you for months. You won't blackmail me. You won't chase my wealth. You'll do what I need and vanish into the life I give you. I opened my mouth, but no words came. Then she leaned even closer, her eyes burning into mine. I don't like waiting, Teniola. Tomorrow evening, you give me your decision. After that, the door closes forever. My legs shook as I left her office. On the bus ride home, the streetlights blurred through my tears. People around me argued about politics, shouted about the price of fuel, cursed the traffic. Only her voice echoed. Tomorrow evening, or the door closes forever. When I reached home, Sayi was sitting in darkness because we couldn't afford electricity. He smiled weakly and held up his school report card. Brother, see. I came second in class this term. My teacher said, if I work harder, I can get a scholarship. I stared at him, the paper trembling in his small hands. My chest burned. How long could this boy's light survive, in a world that only respected money? We were orphans. That night, I wept silently. I wasn't just deciding for myself. I was deciding for him, for us. By morning, my mind was heavy, but my decision was made. When I walked back into Elizabeth's office that day, my voice shook, but I forced the words out. Ma, I will do it. Her smile widened, slow and dangerous. She reached for the folder and slid it back to me. Good choice, Teniola. Very good choice. And just like that, my fate was sealed. But what I didn't know was that by agreeing, I had just opened the door to something Elizabeth herself never expected. The next few days moved like a dream I couldn't wake from. One moment I was a poor worker in a faded uniform. The next I was stepping out of Elizabeth's private car into a mansion in Banana Island. Her house looked like a palace, white walls stretching into the sky, chandeliers glowing through giant glass windows, and guards at every corner. I had only seen such places in magazines. Inside, Elizabeth walked ahead of me, her heels striking the marble like drumbeats. She didn't look back until we reached the lounge, where she turned and studied me as though I was an item she had purchased. You're nervous, she said flatly. I swallowed hard. Yes, Ma. This is not something I ever imagined. Her lips curved. That's because you're still thinking like a poor man. Stop thinking survival. Start thinking legacy. She motioned for me to sit. A servant appeared instantly with juice and biscuits, but my throat was too tight to swallow anything. Elizabeth leaned back, crossing her legs. There are rules, Teniola. If we're doing this, it must be done discreetly. No one in this company, not even the guards outside, must ever know about this deal. Do you understand? Yes, Ma, I muttered, my voice barely above a whisper. Good. Tomorrow, the doctor will run final tests. After that, we begin. Her tone was calm, but underneath it was an urgency I didn't understand. Why would a billionaire be so desperate? Why me, of all men in Lagos? That night, she lodged me in one of her guest rooms. I lay on the king-sized bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the silent hum of an air conditioner that never blinked. It felt like I had been transported into another life, yet my heart was chained to the one I left behind, the one where Sayi coughed through the night and rats scratched at the wooden door. Morning came too quickly. A private doctor arrived with a bag of equipment, blood tests, health checks, endless questions. Elizabeth watched every move, her eyes cold, calculating. You're healthy, the doctor finally said. No issues. Elizabeth exhaled, relieved, and dismissed him with a wave. Then she turned to me. Now, we move forward. My palms were wet, my body trembling. I wanted to run. But where would I run to? Back to the gutter? Back to the landlord's threats? Back to hopelessness? That evening, she called me into her master bedroom. The room was larger than my entire apartment block. Golden drapes, a bed big enough to swallow 3 families. The air smelled of roses. Elizabeth stood by the window, the sunset painting her hair in fire. She turned, her eyes sharper than ever. "This is it, Teniola. You won't regret it." I nodded slowly, though my heart pounded so loudly, I thought she could hear it. As I stepped further into that room, I realized I was walking into a deal that no one on earth could understand. And deep down, though I couldn't explain it, something about Elizabeth's eyes told me that she herself wasn't ready for what was coming. The first night I entered Elizabeth's room, I thought I would collapse from fear. The air was thick with perfume and silence, a silk robe clinging to her like it belonged there. She looked at me with eyes that weren't just powerful, they were searching. "This is not about feelings, Teniola," she said, her voice softer than I had ever heard. "This is about purpose. Do you understand?" "Yes, Ma," I replied, my throat dry. But after we went intimate, I realized something she hadn't planned for silence was heavier than wealth. She had money, she had power, but in that room, Elizabeth looked like a woman who carried loneliness heavier than diamonds. Days turned into weeks. She would summon me after work, always behind locked doors. We spoke little, but in those brief moments, I caught glimpses of a human being hidden beneath the billionaire mask. One evening, after another visit from her private doctor, Elizabeth poured herself wine and sat opposite me in the lounge. She looked tired, not the kind of tired that sleep could cure, but the kind that seeps from the heart. "Do you think I'm crazy?" she asked suddenly. I froze. "No, Ma." She gave a short laugh, bitter as vinegar. "Don't lie. You think this is madness. A billionaire woman dragging a maintenance worker into her house just to give her a child. Who does that?" I didn't answer. I couldn't. She stared at the wine glass in her hand, swirling it slowly. "Men. I can't trust them. Every man I ever dated wanted my wealth, my empire, my connections. Not me. Never me." Her voice cracked, just once. "So I chose differently. I chose you." Her words struck me harder than I expected. In that moment, I saw not a billionaire, not a boss, but a woman, wounded by betrayal, desperate for something real. Still, it didn't erase the fear that lived in my chest. Because each time she looked at me, I couldn't tell if she saw Teniola, the poor worker, or just a tool to get what she wanted. One night, after everything, she lay back against her pillows and whispered, almost to herself, "Maybe I made the wrong choice." The words chilled me. What did she mean? Wrong choice in me? Wrong choice in this plan? Or something else entirely? I wanted to ask, but her eyes had already drifted shut, and the room fell into silence once more. That night, as I walked back to the guest room, my heart thudded with a strange certainty. Something in this arrangement was shifting, and whatever it was, it would shake both our worlds in a way neither of us was prepared for. Weeks passed, and my life no longer felt like my own. By day, I still wore my faded uniform at Chevron, fixing broken pipes and sweeping polished floors. By night, I lived in Elizabeth's mansion, locked inside a secret that could destroy us both. At first, I told myself it was only for the visa, only for Seiyi's future. But slowly, the lines began to blur. Elizabeth wasn't the same woman I had first feared. She laughed sometimes, in short bursts that startled even her. She asked about Seiyi, about my childhood in Mushin, about things no billionaire should care about. She was still powerful, still commanding, but in those private hours, I saw the shadow of a woman, craving something deeper than money. Yet, beneath her calm smile, I noticed cracks growing. One evening, she returned from a board meeting, her hands trembling as she poured herself wine. "They think I can't lead because I don't have an heir," she said, her voice sharp. "Men sit across that table and remind me every day that without a child, my empire has no future. That's why I need this, Teniola. That's why I need you." I nodded, but my chest felt heavy. She wasn't just desperate, she was haunted. Then came the day that changed everything. Her private doctor returned for a follow-up. After the examination, he pulled Elizabeth aside. I watched her face as she listened, at first calm, then stiff, then pale. When he left, she sat in silence, staring at the floor. "What did he say, Ma?" I asked carefully. She looked up at me, her eyes wide with something I had never seen in her before: fear. "It's nothing," she muttered, standing too quickly. "Just routine." But that night, long after the house had gone quiet, I heard her crying in her room. The sound was muffled, but it cut through me like a knife. The next morning, she avoided my eyes. She buried herself in work calls, in meetings, in anything that kept her from speaking. But I knew something had shifted. And then, just before I left for work, she stopped me at the door. Her hand trembled slightly as it touched my arm. "Teniola, if what the doctor suspects is true, then this arrangement may not end the way either of us planned." My breath caught. "What do you mean?" Her lips pressed into a thin line. For the first time since I met her, Elizabeth, the untouchable billionaire, the woman who bent men to her will, looked uncertain. She whispered, almost too low to hear, "There's something about you, Teniola, something I never expected." And with that, she turned away, leaving me frozen at the door, my heart pounding with questions I couldn't answer. What is your view about this story? Where are you watching from? Do well to let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more interesting stories. Stay blessed.